Howdy do. Another beautiful day in the garden. There it is. Just looking at the different growth rates that I have across the garden. I love gardening, obviously, but I like to experiment with it, and sometimes I experiment on purpose, and other times it just sort of happens. And it has just kind of happened this last year because my tractor broke down last fall, and I had fully planned to put composted manures all across this area here that we expanded into, and we kind of expanded another 30 feet this way as well on the end. A lot of it did pretty good, but we did get some in there, some manures in there. And here you can see where there was a drop of chicken stuff put in there and not spread out very well. So some of it just responded really well there. You can see there it's growing up big. Over there it's growing up big. There it's pretty well killed everything. It's just too much. It'll be good next year though. Perfect. But we try to keep the fertilizer off the potatoes. I've found that potatoes doesn't like too much manure in the soil. It gets a leaf curl and it just doesn't produce anything underneath. And if it does, it's kind of deformed potatoes. But yeah, I was just thinking of the corn and to do with nitrogen. Corn responds to nitrogen, I think, more than any other plant that I know of. And where you get a fair bit of manures and nitrogen in the soil, it does really well. But as you go down the patch, you notice there's a low spot there, and there's so then you have to question, well, is it nitrogen again? But so there's two things that have to do with, they both have to do with nitrogen, but there is lack of nitrogen in the soil, and then there's the lack of nitrogen uptake by the plants, and they both result in the same thing, but they're two different things. And one of them is the fact that it's just not there. It's not in the soil, like as we see over on that end. Where the corn gets smaller there, it just needs to have more manures put in. But here, it actually is in the soil, but that's the problem, is it's still in the soil and the plant hasn't been able to take it up. And what happens is whenever the corn plant gets too wet, it affects its ability to absorb the nitrogen out of the soil. So it's still a nitrogen issue, but it's one that has to do with more the place they're growing, I guess, or the weather, and then rather than the fact that with you're actually shortage of nitrogen. But I find that in those places here is, as the season wears on and it dries up more and that and heats up more, these areas do still produce well, but they're just slower at getting going in that. And but yeah, so I look across the garden, various things growing here. Again, here we really do have the some areas here where it just needed more manure. You can just see like there's a straight line between one row and the other, like just a drop off there. And that's where we kind of put the manures, right along that edge there. And then on the next row over, we didn't have it there. So, and as we go towards the end here, you see a bit of a rise here. And this is actually getting into some almost peat area where it was low, and it did quite well there once it started drying out. And here, even down in here, it's starting to grow because there's lots of there's a fair bit of nitrogen in the soil here, but it's big truck just passed. Yeah, and here would be the same thing. except here it's actually wet and it's not able to do anything with that nitrogen. So there we are. Fodder beets, they don't seem to mind wet. Really do quite well all the way across. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, we extended another few feet this way too on this side. Just because, I don't know why, I just go a little further every year. But I'm kind of, there's the marsh there, so there's a limit to that. Yeah, anyways, there you go.